me Nate. Yeah, I got too much sauce on my plate. Yeah, Devin Owens with the left hand. Shout out D Money from the West, man. E Mac on the true boy. Yes, white Jesus, stay blessed, man. It's about time, ain't it, Johnny? But I can't name like everybody. Shout out Big Germ, Katrina Allen, Val Jenkins, Wysocki, Sepple Payu, Matt Dollar, Sarah Holcomb. I say, boy, stop me. Jessica Weiss, that girl is a beast. They crushing it like Double G. Yeah, yeah.
All right, guys, what's going on? We are back with the first round, part 2 of the 2020 Frostbite Open. This is Will Schusterick and Idris Garcia. We're watching myself, Will Schusterick, Michael Gibney, Matt Dollar, Colin Forehand, and Jared Neal.
Really good round we've got going so far. You've got a 3-stroke lead over Mr. Gibney. We have 3 former Frostbite Open champions as we head into hole number 12. This looks like it's another tight one. What you got here?
All right, hole 12, 250 feet, par 3, averages about a par. I think that kind of gives it credit for being super tight. This slightly uphill. They're going to see a couple different routes taken on this hole. There's kind of a sneaky right-hand gap. For me, I want to keep to the right-hand side of the tee pad here. Get my disc a little higher since you're going uphill, and I'm going with an A3. Caught one of those inside ninja trees and just ended up being a little short.
Here is Michael Gibney. He is going sidearm as well. And it looks like he went a little bit tighter and kicked off to the left there.
Yeah, I know Gibney's been working on his forehand for a couple years now. Sometimes it just doesn't come as natural to some players. As Matt Dollar throws a nice forehand up there. There's a little shelf right in front of the basket. It's a good landing spot if you can't really get all the way up there to give yourself a look for birdie.
And the forehand has to be the best route if that's what Colin is throwing, because he does not go by his last name. He does not throw a lot of those forehands.
Yes,
same with Jared, and both of them are going to have probably the 2 best-looking drives there.
Yeah, it's mostly Colin backhand.
Yeah, absolutely.
As Gibney's kind of finding the outside fairway at this point, and this gives proof why this hole averages 3. Because you're not going to see a lot of birdies, and it's easy to take a bogey if you get off the fairway.
With the long uphill look, just putting it there under the basket, gave it a nice little run. Those uphill ones are so tough to get enough on them.
Yeah, the jump putt layup is, when you get 100 feet down or 150 feet down a 250-foot hole, you kind of just want to give it a nice little soft bid, but just an easy tap in for par.
Dollar going a little bit high there off the top. Looks like the wind may have helped push it over. It's Colin just tapping it in. Colin backhand with the solid forehand.
Yeah, it's a good pickup. It's not one of those holes, again, that averages a 3, so you're going to see a bogey, you're going to see a birdie, and probably 2 pars, which is happening right now.
I think Jared is still going for his birdie. We might see 2. I think we will. We'll see 2 birdies here. Hole number 12. And as we covered on the
Yep, through 12. Gibney with a lone birdie. Colin backhand. Jared Neal picking up the birdies. We're headed on to 13. Again, it's around 245 feet. If you watch the part 1 video, you learn that these last 3 holes are brand new to the course. They put them in, I think, only a couple weeks before this tournament, so they are a little rough. This one's got, I think, one of the probably the best fairway of the 3, as a lot of players are just looking to throw probably right-hand, backhand slight turnover with a semi-overstable putter and just get it to have a little bit of a flex back with the route being on that right-hand side. Colin turns his over, and that's in the direction of the basket. I think he ended up long. Does go a tiny bit downhill. And again, it's only 245 feet. And Jared wants to throw at 300 all the time.
245. That downhill probably didn't help him out. Looks like you're going with the PA3 there. looked like it didn't quite get turned over enough, but it did stay over, and that's parked.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough just to slide through one of those little trees right there. And again, these holes are fairly new, so there's probably a couple trees in there that'll end up coming out sooner than later. But, you know, for this tournament, it was good enough.
Gibney.
Had a nice kick right there. That goes right towards the basket.
Here is Dollar looking through some trees with a little step. Catches the top of the bucket. Just not quite enough hyzer to dump it in there.
Yeah, that was a great run right there by Gibney. He just kind of hit high left with that right-hand backhand and just kind of sliding out. Almost a solid hit, just a couple more inches to the right.
That would be Jared in the brush there after going deep of the pin. He'll be left with a look at par. Colin with a nice look for birdie, and he splashes out right.
Yeah, these are just, you know, one of those 50-50 putts. I think same thing with Gibney. Sometimes those drop in. Sometimes they kind of grab and will bring itself into the basket. But, of course, 50-50 going the wrong way for those guys.
That will leave you with the only chance at birdie left, as everyone else just cleans up the par.
And I'm actually talking about how to get to the next hole. There was so much rain between a couple days before the tournament that it took a little bit to walk to the next hole, even though it was pretty close. As we're headed on to hole number 14, again in that 240-foot range, but averaging close to par. This is a little bit of a tricky angle. You want to throw it fairly high on the sidearm, but there is a ceiling that you have to deal with. There's a Mando on the right-hand side. The best play is to try to get a high glidey sidearm to kind of float over there to the right, or get a nice skip. But again, since it rained a lot, you're not going to see a lot of skips over there. You're going to see a lot of players do exactly what I did right there, which is hit that tree straight off the fairway.
Here is Colin with his second forehand in the last couple of holes.
Ooh, it's almost becoming Colin Forehand.
Yeah, he's getting there for sure. I mean, he's got to look at birdie. If he goes 2 for 2 on forehand birdies, we might be able to give him his last name back.
Yeah, he really has been. Him and Gibney, I know, have both been working on the forehand for quite some time. As Jared has actually taken the backhand route there, and that's not a bad play. It really is all about getting that nose angle kind of up, but also not enough to where it takes that dig as Matt kind of scoots away just a little bit, but still a great backhand shot. Uphill turnover to where you need something to not go too early to the right is a tough one to execute.
Gibney probably looking for a little bit more of that skip, and will get it. He'll have a downhill look there at the basket. You are another jump putt approach. Looking to put it under the basket.
Yeah, and I'm just looking to sling it up there and land it by the pole. Don't want to have a full swing, reach back and throw. Just need to kind of pop it up in the air and land it up there. As Colin, you can't really see too many flags or trees moving around, but we're getting kind of into a few more open holes, and the wind does start to come into play a little bit more, so kind of take that into account as we're watching these guys.
And their Dollar doing more so what Gibney just couldn't do, and keeping the disc down off of that slope. Jared, I'm sure, loves downhill putts with how tall he is.
Yeah, he looks massive compared to that basket.
He converts as well.
I'm not sure why, but that angle makes him look like he's 7 foot tall.
Colin will be out for his par.
Yeah, and
see if
Colin
he can spin one back.
He's had a lot of these comeback putts. So if you watch the first part of this tournament, seemed like, you know, this was kind of his range. He had kind of like the 35 to 40 foot look on a lot of holes, and ended up having the 18 to 22 foot comebacker, and he's been making them all day.
Yep, definitely salvaging whatever he can and grabbing some pars, making sure to keep the scorecard as clean as possible. Gibney will get his par as well. Another nice little conversion there. A tester for par. That'll round it out. 2 birdies for Dollar and Jared. And the rest pars. You have a 5-stroke lead. And thanks to Auburn Opelika Tourism, they were the main sponsor for the tournament and the coverage as well. Obviously some great things happening down there in the Auburn Opelika area. 2 new courses approved and in the works. And I heard there was also a pickleball tournament happening at the same time as the Frostbite Open. So,
yeah, 288 people came in for the pickleball 3-day pickleball tournament, which is pretty wild. A huge shout out to the Auburn Opelika and what they're doing down there. As we're headed on to hole number 15, fairly tough, 205 foot. Again, it averages around a par. This hole is pretty tight. It has kind of a different finishing angle to the basket, so you're going to see a lot of players either go with a really touch sidearm, or they're going to look to almost throw it into the ground off the tee and try to slide it all the way past up that last skinny tree that you see on the ground up there.
Jared pulls his just a little bit. Dollar's going to choose to go with the sidearm here. I feel like this is one of those holes where it makes you a big proponent of the fan grip. I know that's something that you talk about a lot. It makes it essential for these types of shots where you don't really want to turn away from the target and just spin it down there.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if Colin does throw for a fan grip or not, but a lot of the pros that are looking to throw a super tight shot, Colin throws a really nice shot right there.
Beautiful.
You want to keep it just nice and smooth out of your hand, not really a full body turn because it is a shorter shot, and you really just want to play the gravity of being so high off the hill. That's I would say a common play for the hole. Either slight early release and you're looking at a par, just because it's so tough to get to the basket off this tee without hitting the dead center gap.
And Gibney kicked over far right. He'll still have some trees to deal with, but it looks like he got out of the really dangerous part of the hole and will at least have an easy par.
Yeah, and I'm looking throwing a PA4 touch shot here, just trying to give it a little bit of angle and land it by the pole. And
That'll be another par.
And again, this is exactly why this hole averages a 3, because you're going to get players who do end up hitting a tree off the tee pad. There's not too much danger unless you just get stuck in jail on the left or right.
Jared asking for his disc to hook up and doesn't quite get it.
Yeah, and Gibney with a jump putt from about 50 or 60 feet right here. Not a bad look considering that he just got kind of kicked over to that location.
Colin after the great drive. Found a little bit of mud, but converts on the birdie. Leaving the hole happy there.
And there was an out of bounds behind this basket, and I know that there is, I don't know if it's a local play or a play in previous tournaments. People would throw over the top off the tee pad, but the basket was shorter around that time, and then I don't know if they played the out of bounds long off of this. You can kind of see a little bit of a fence, almost where Gibney putter, maybe not quite that far. But it's kind of tough to throw over the top when you got that out of bounds 25 feet from the basket.
Yeah, and that's just good awareness there by a course designer, just making it to where, making the players throw the gap that you want the hole to play through. Headed into hole number 16, 345 feet, a little bit longer after these shorter holes just passed. This one averages just above par as well. A nice long straight shot with a right finish there. Probably want to throw something that hyzer flips to dead straight or just has a late turn on it.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of players either go with kind of what Colin is doing right now. He's getting that late flip. Seemed like a great shot, maybe just a little short of the circle is what it looks like. Jared has the power to go mid-range on this hole to where he can get that late flip, which is a little easier whenever throwing a slower disc. A lot of players will throw fairway driver or mid-range, like I just said with Jared, to try to get that late fade. Driver, you're not really going to get too much of a late fade, or late flip, I should say, just because it's going to be slowing down around that time. And, you know, once it scoots over to the left a little bit, there is that pine on the ground where you're going to see a lot of skips and slides and end up outside the circle.
Dollar looks like he got a favorable kick back towards the middle of the fairway. He'll be out in the open. I'm guessing you're going H3V2 there.
Close. I actually put an F3 in my bag for some of these shots out here. I like the way the F3 throws in 400 series plastic, especially since it's a little cold. I can throw that with a little bit of hyzer and have a nice late flip. The H3 is a little faster, and then doesn't have as quite of a late turn over to the right over. So went with the F3 on that one.
I'm going to approach around the trees. We're going to get into that little gap there. Ooh, maybe giving it a little run off the skip there.
Yeah, and the next couple holes have a lot of the pine needles around the baskets. So you're going to see a lot of skips and slides. You just kind of got to keep that into mind. It's not too difficult, of course, and sometimes it makes it a little easier because you can get around corners a little easier.
Smooth turnover approach there for Gibney. Dollar will be looking at a similar shot from closer, more so putting it. It just doesn't quite flex back enough to give it the basket a run. He'll have an easy par.
Yeah, as Colin is lining up this 40 to 50 foot Anheuser putt, which is really tough to hit. I mean, trying to get it wide left and swing it in you know, such a short distance. It's not like you have a lot of room to go from way left to right, especially on a putt like that. So you got to keep it pretty close to the tree. And same thing with Jared right there. It's kind of a little bit of a hope that you have a look at the basket. I think I remember having a little bit of a straddle looking around the tree on this.
Just off the top, doesn't quite fall as it comes down.
And here's Colin in that same range.
Yeah. He just drills it. He's a machine there for those par putts.
Yeah, he's really making those putts look pretty easy. Definitely gives a confidence whenever you're trying to run them from 35 to 40 feet, which he's continued to do.
Dollar will get his par as well. Here is Gibney. Looking to clean off some of that pine straw, make sure he has good footing underneath, trying to find a little dirt.
Yeah, and again, I think this hole averaged over par. I think it was 3.15 if I remember. You don't see a lot of birdies just because I think that late kind of tuck into the trees right there makes it a little bit more difficult. As Jared is tapping in his, he ended up with the bogey there. Hole 17, 361 feet, par 3, average 3.24. Again, this is one of those difficult holes. Kind of has a nice angle to it. I think it's a really nice shaped shot. Previous years, we played a farther right position that was really tough to get to. You're going to see a lot of players either throw a semi, not necessarily an understable disc. They want to throw it flat to maybe with a little bit of turn, and then get a flex at the end to where it finishes straight. Doesn't necessarily fade too much, as Colin is showing us how it's done right there.
Beautiful shot there from Colin.
Yeah, the understable fairway driver is a great shot for this, as it just has a slow fade, just like Matt is showing us how to fillet the fairway right there. Almost hits the pole.
These guys doing their best work for the camera there. Hole averaging over par, but 2 really, really nice shots to start the hole.
Yeah, and Gibney just looks a little early release. It looked like he threw his F5 on that, which is a great shot for this type of hole, to where you're throwing slide hyzer. It's going to turn, but once it slows down, it does have a late fade. Again, finishing straight towards the basket instead of too far right.
Jared looks like he put it on a really nice line, but the disc angle just wasn't quite right to get the turn that he needed.
And it looked like he kicked a mile left. Look, he went really far.
He throws pretty hard, so anytime he kicks, I don't think it's going to be a soft one.
Yeah, and that's that same F3 I threw on the hole before. Ended up being way too much disc for the shot. Being a little bit long. Not too bad, though. You can kind of scramble through these trees over here. They're a lot bigger, not as many skinny pine trees as the previous holes. I don't think that Jared ended up getting out right there. I think he ended up kind of where my drive landed. Gibney actually ended up having a look on that. Even though off the tee pad he had an early release, his disc must have turned over and kind of gotten up there a little bit.
Jared with that long spin putt. That's what's just so tough about the tops of these baskets. They kind of form a little bit of a ramp. So if you hit the right angle on top there, it's not going to be an easy comebacker.
Yeah, and I think that was myself back there throwing a little forehand approach shot, kind of only having one angle, as Jared missing his comebacker. He's going to end up taking a 5 on this hole.
Yeah, it's tough. Just looks like his putts were a little bit high.
There's Colin with that great drive.
Yeah, really, really nice birdie. And Dollar's even closer. These guys probably wondering when we were going to get to their shots, rewarded for their awesome drives.
Yeah, again, I think they went with a straight fairway driver, not necessarily understable. Threw it flat, got a little bit of a turn, and then finished straight. Great way to play this snaking hole, 17.
Yeah, that's such a great disc golf shot shape. It's just beautiful to watch a disc slightly flip over and then have that nice little flex back. It's just so rewarding. Jared taking the 5. We had 2 birdies and 2 pars. We have a 3-way tie there for second at 3 down.
As we're headed into hole 18, 332 feet, par 3, averaging 3.27. This is one of the difficult par 3s on the course. It's just because of where the basket is located, kind of on that berm. Had a lot of nightmares about this hole for the last year. If you guys have watched the 2019 footage, it's tough to watch, but I'll just leave it to that. I'll just let you go watch it.
Well, I hope that we're in for a little bit of redemption this year. I will hold my breath.
I won't spoil it. I'm not sure what. I think Matt's ended up hitting one of those first trees and kicking left. You can't really see because of the shadows. As we watch Gibney, I think he goes with a mid-range, just trying to go straight. It's not a bad hole to try to throw to that white PVC pipe in the ground to just have a look at birdie. Possibly, if it skipped over there, to have a look at 2.
Not a bad kick there for you.
Yeah, I ended up going with the D Model S sidearm on that. I am really liking that on a sidearm.
Jared pulls his, but he gets through.
Yeah, there's that inside route.
Look at that hill.
A lot of players go for that inside flex route and try to get up there to actually have a shot. And we're looking at a really borderline impossible shot right here with all these little skinny trees, and it's not bad. It did pop out to where he can see the basket and hopefully get up and down, but getting off the fairway on this hole is really difficult to get actually up there to give yourself a look.
Yeah, that looked like it was brutal.
And Colin just finding himself, barely off the fairway here. He does have a nice step-out forehand. He's back to Colin Forehand. No!
Oh, what the roll.
Gosh, that was so close to being perfect. Going for the jump shot here. Trying to just land it flat. You got a really good camera angle from Colin's shot to see how easy it is for your disc to roll here.
Yeah, it looks like you laid it up under there nicely.
And Gibney's just looking to do that same thing. Just land it by the pole, fist pump, ready to go.
Sometimes it's not about just making the shot. It's not executing what you need to do, not getting a roll away. Gosh, I hate that this is where Colin ended up after his shot. Beautiful shot, though.
Colin is the par master.
He's a par master.
That's also a great putt right there by Matt. I mean, with that drop off and putt for par for Colin, putt for bogey for Matt, I mean, it's difficult to really truly focus and just want to pop it in there.
Yeah, really, really great work by those guys.
Because you're not going to have an easy comeback putt if you miss one of those.
Well, I kind of feel cheated on the redemption because you don't even have to putt this year, but
that was the whole point.
I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy for you.
I think it's better to not have to putt. Last time I checked.
Jared will clean up, as will you, keeping that 7 down intact.
All right, we're headed into hole number 19. This is a 500-foot par 3, averaging a little bit over par. It's one of those wide open holes. You're going to watch these players rip one as far as they can. It's going to be fun to watch. You're going to be able to see that flag from the tee pad. It lines up perfectly with the basket. Has a little bit of a downhill play. So you're going to watch the players who can reach the hole, try to keep it wide to accommodate for that drop towards the basket as... I think we're throwing into a slight headwind on this hole, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Colin turning his over a little bit there. Looks like that headwind did get a hold of it, and it never had that flex back.
Yeah, speaking of headwind right there, Gibney looked to throw that flat to slide Anheuser, and I don't know if he didn't play for the wind or it just hit him whenever he didn't know it was coming.
Big rip there from you. Looks like that has a nice angle. Getting that fade back towards the basket, catching a little bit of that downhill. And the roll.
Yeah, I didn't realize how far that disc went until I got down there, and obviously it got a nice little 15, 20-foot roll on the very end of it. And Jared as well, probably not playing the wind as great as he wish he could have. Probably thinking it was going to flip his disc a little bit more. And Matt,
yeah, he had plenty of distance on it.
He ended up going roller on that, especially being wide open. It's not a bad play.
It looks like it just cut a little bit too much.
I had a great line on it. I can't remember if it ended up going too long. It's easy to go long on the upshot here. You can kind of see how it plays downhill towards the pin. So the drives coming in are going to skip a little bit more left, or the upshots end up going a little bit long. Oh, man. As we watch Colin almost drain that right there.
Whew.
Jared taking a run. This is always a nice pickup to get, for any player, whether they toss it in or have a look.
From downtown, Mr. Will Schusterick.
Oh, yeah. It always feels good. It feels like it's been a couple holes since I've gotten a birdie. Going through kind of the tougher stretch of the holes previous. And getting into the last couple.
That's a good one to get there.
As we're watching, oh no, I was about to call him Parlin instead of Colin. Been thinking about how you can fit Colin and Par together, but it didn't really work out. I think I jinxed him.
Must have. Luckily, he does not get any sort of roll away or anything. Jared converts on his par.
Good putt by Matt, good putt by Jared right there. Gibney did have a really good upshot compared to his drive wasn't great. Obviously, turned it over a little bit too much. Good upshot though. That is through 19 as we're headed on to hole 20. I would say this is the most difficult shot compared to the shape and the out of bounds on the left-hand side here. As we're watching a nice sunset come in. You're going to see a lot of players end up laying up on that side of the hill. The walking path and beyond is out of bounds. The basket is kind of on that little inlet. As you see, there's a little bit of mud up there, kind of catching some shots that are flying in and not skipping as much as years previous. And here
definitely
is
a touchy shot.
Here's that H3 V2. Feel pretty confident with that one right there.
Yeah, really nice avoiding the path there, not getting too much of a skip, playing the hill very nicely.
And Gibney, unfortunately, gets a little bit too high. I think a lower shot would have worked out for him. But that wind got underneath it and faded it out of bounds.
You saw him asking for it to flip over. It looks like you guys have a little bit of a slight headwind, maybe a little bit right to left.
Yeah, and Jared, same thing right there, just grabbing the corner. Luckily crossing in bounds, but again, the wind is picking up as you're watching the flags kind of either by the tee pad or up there by the basket. As Matt takes the safe play, probably the smart play, and just going over there to the right, staying in bounds.
Yeah, with that wind pushing towards out of bounds a little bit, watching those two guys, he just plays it safe. And Colin, looks like a safe shot for him as well.
Yeah, definitely if you can't reach the hole or you feel like it's a safer play to go for par, this is the hole to do it. Especially with the out of bounds, you can always end up going out of bounds and having to re-tee, looking at a quick bogey, and then taking a layup shot like Matt and Colin did right there. They take the easy par.
Yeah, good execution for those guys. I mean, it's tough when you lay up and also have an errant second shot, but those guys look to be playing their game nicely. Jared from the OB just never really gave it enough of a chance.
And we're getting a little bit more into the open holes again, as I mentioned. You're going to see a lot more wind come into play here. And towards the end of this second round, I think the wind picked up to where it was the strongest throughout the day. I think I jinxed Colin. I'm going to blame myself.
I might have too. I mean, I thought those guys played their layups nicely, and they just both took bogeys. So, my bad, everyone.
It always has to do with the post-production.
Yeah, well, nice too.
I mean, that one's got to feel pretty good after watching the entire rest of the card bogey.
Yeah, the last two holes are definitely bonuses in my mind. I would love to get them, half of the time, or I think half of the time is a good number to go by, but I don't really count them as automatic birdies, just because the OB on this hole, and then the last hole, of course, being the distance, being 500 feet to get there. It's not something that you can just count on every round you play. As we're headed into hole number 21, 260 feet, fairly easy hole, maybe the easiest hole on the course. There's almost no trouble on this one. You just want to get your disc out there flat and then have a soft fade to the basket. Players are going to throw putters, maybe even an overstable mid-range. I'm going with a A3 on this. A little tiny fan grip. Slight anhyzer to flat out of your hand. And then have that fade towards the basket.
A nice line on it there. Hooks up right at the basket. See if Gibney can follow you there. He throws a little slight hyzer out of his hand as well. Beautiful angle there. Going a little bit deep.
Yeah, pretty much all pro players want to be getting this hole. It's not something not difficult. There's almost no challenge besides the fact once you get your disc flat, it's going to be going over there to the left.
Probably a pretty good candidate for easiest hole, like you said. Averaging about a 2.32, so well under par for sure. Park job there from Colin.
Jared with a nice little 20 to 25 footer right there.
Cash money.
Nice comeback for him as taking the bogey on the previous hole. Good putt by Gibney, picking up the birdie.
Oh boy. You and Dollar looking to clean up with the pickleball facility there in the background. It was under construction last year, I believe, and they finished it and had a 288-person tournament there.
Yeah, that parking lot is filled to the brim with disc golfers and pickleball players from across the U.S. coming in for that huge tournament you're talking about. Pretty wild to see, but that's a big facility. Opelika Parks and Rec doing it big. Hole 22, 225 feet. This is an island hole. You can see the flags going around it. It just plays as a hazard, so if anybody misses the Mando, it's not a re-tee or a drop zone. Just going to be taking a stroke and playing from where the disc lands. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of a left to right here. Looking to throw this sidearm low, a little bit left. Play for that skip as I got fortunate that it rolled right inbounds.
That late curl. A little English on it, right in front of the flag.
A little English on it. As Gibney looks to be going, I think he's going A2 on this. It's a good shot by Gibney. Giving himself a nice look. Jared having a little bit of a tough round, looking to get these last two holes to finish even. Going for the ace. Oh, man. That was a good line.
What a shot there from Jared. Really nice.
Calling back in.
It looks like he's headed towards the bucket as well, and he'll be parked.
That's why he's calling back in.
Now going a little bit higher than the other two guys. He will spike it.
Yeah,
right
perfect
on
shot
the
right
basket.
there by Matt. Nice comeback.
Looking to capitalize here on the bit of luck off the ground. See what you got.
Yeah, it's always nice to finish out the round with a nice putt. Hit it into the last hole, of course.
Banger.
Whenever we can get a little bit of English to get inbounds and then make the putt, feels good.
And Gibney will have the toughest putt left, so we might be looking at a star frame here at the risk of jinxing and yet another part of this coverage.
It's always about the post coverage, jinxing something. Well, he did.
Yeah.
He didn't jinx it. The jinx is over.
Woo! Curse lifted.
Yeah, these other guys are just tapping in their birdies. make them with their eyes closed.
Finish for everybody there. Picking up a star frame. Nice way to end round number 1.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for the next hole, a huge shout out to So Blue Productions for this video coverage. They do a fantastic job filming tournaments in the Alabama area, Alabama, Georgia. I've seen them around filming a bunch of tournaments, and it's always nice to have camera crews out there doing the work, doing the post-production, and helping grow the sport. So huge shout out to those guys as we're headed into hole 23, 305 feet, par 3, averaging barely above par, 3.05. The basket is on a kind of a drainage, I don't know what you would call it, but it makes it difficult for putting because there's a little bit of a sink before the basket, which makes where a lot of people end up landing, makes it to where putting uphill becomes even more uphill because of that sink.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what causes this hole to average over par for sure. I mean, maybe the OB right behind it, but I would say maybe as you find it there.
What's funny on this hole is when we were practicing and warming up the day before, and before the tournament, there was a straight headwind, and the headwind was so strong, I was throwing a D1, my most overstable D1, as hard as I could, and could barely get to this basket. And I end up throwing an H1 V2 with the right to left wind, and of course it goes pretty far past.
Jared and Gibney will have looks at it. It's Colin going with Heiser as well.
And that's kind of where the standard play, I would say, because you don't want to throw it as far and get enough glide. As I ended up giving these guys a nice wind read for the right to left as they're keeping it wide. Kind of spiking it right into the hill, and that's the way to play it.
Good play, Colin.
Colin just lays it up smartly. I mean, that's just good play. I'm sure you see a ton of action off a miss on this hole.
Yeah, this last hole, the wind really decided to pick up. Got a little fortunate as it basically rolled back into that little culvert there, or whatever you would like to call it.
Maybe a little lift as that right to left wind off the tee became a headwind on the putting green for Jared.
Yeah, and that tailwind going uphill like that, you only have such a small gap for the disc to fit into, and it's tough just to try to laser it in there, especially with the out of bounds not too far behind the basket.
Oh, goodness.
And Matt is electing to rethrow from his previous lie as he ends up knocking that in. For anybody who does not know the rule on that, if your shot ends up anywhere, you can end up rethrowing from the previous lie, taking a stroke penalty.
Which would have been the same as you may not have seen, but Matt did go OB up top, so he would have taken a stroke either way, and thought that re-putting would be the easier. Oh, no!
Oh, man, that is tough to watch. I was there the first time, and that's tough to watch the second time.
My heart is broken. Gibney.
I know. That's a heartbreaker.
Oh, man. And it just takes the medicine.
It's basically a two-stroke penalty right there. Pretty crazy to think that's a two-stroke penalty after he put it into the center of the basket and rolled away.
I don't even, I'm speechless.
Yeah, and that ended up keeping him off the lead card. So, headed into round number 2. Gibney will not be on the lead card, unfortunately. That is, after round 1, I ended up shooting a 10 under that round, 1 stroke in front of Mark Poole, Joshua Hollingsworth at 7 under, Stuart Gardner 5 under, Christopher Downey as well. So we're going to be seeing them on the round 2 coverage. Michael Gibney, Matt Dollar, Jared Neal, you can see on that screen right there as well. Thanks for watching. Again, this is Will Schusterick and Idris Garcia, Frostbite Open, presented by Auburn Opelika Tourism. Huge shout out to the sponsors. Idris, you got any finishing words?
Oh man, thanks for the coverage. So blue. We'll see you guys in round 2.